billions of dollars vanish. Lives are ruined, families shattered, and it all starts with one text. Hey, are you picking me up at the airport? Welcome to Stolen, hosted by former prosecutor Erin West, a relentless voice exposing the brutal truth behind transnational organized crime and one of the most dangerous and underreported crimes in the world, pig butchering scams. These are not random frauds. They're global, organized, and devastating. Victims aren't just losing money, they're losing hope. This is the podcast where the silence breaks. Stolen. And now your host, Erin West.
Hi friends, and welcome to Stolen. My name is Erin West. I was a prosecutor for 26 years and retired about a year ago to start a nonprofit fighting transnational organized crime. And that's why I couldn't be happier about this episode you are about to hear. I've been in the trenches along with so many colleagues, really trying to raise the alarm about the fact that the United States and many other countries in the world are in the crosshairs of transnational organized crime, and that their means of disrupting our society is to steal our money and to cause chaos, the chaos that ensues when someone has been led to believe that they are in love and that in addition they can become wealthy using this tried and true method of investing in cryptocurrency that has worked for their new loved one. And what we're finding is that victims who experience that are wrecked beyond belief. There is a really incomprehensible place they end up where you're 45 years old, you're 60 years old, you're 30 years old, and you've lost everything that you have built so far. And even worse, you really thought that you had something special. You thought you had the person that you would spend your life with. It's an extremely destructive crime, and that's just what's happening to the financial victims. Appearing on the podcast with me today is Jacob Sims. And Jacob Sims comes from the other side of this human trafficking lens and what is happening to the humans who have been forced to do this work, who are led to believe they're going to have an amazing job making a substantial amount of money and that they'll be able to do this for a limited time and go home, only to find that they've been trafficked, they're living in a guarded facility, they're being beaten on the daily, and that this is their new way of life. I met Jake early on in pursuing my mission, and he and I have developed an amazing relationship of trying to fight this on parallel tracks. And as you've heard, this week was a big one for us. This was the week that one of the major kingpins was indicted by the Department of Justice, and a joint operation by the UK and the US sanctioned a number of his pieces of property, his business, and it's an amazing day. And along with that, there is $15 billion attributable to this kingpin, Chen Zhi, that is in the custody of the U.S. government. So you can bet, as someone who thinks of victims first, I'm curious about how that will be distributed and what will become of that massive amount of money. And so you can bet, friends, that I will be looking into it on behalf of these victims to see how we can use that money for good. Ideally, it would be distributed to the victims who had lost money, but if that proves too complex, I'd love to see it built into a fund that could be used to help victims who have been destroyed on all sides of the planet. It's a round planet, turns out. So I'm excited for you to enjoy this conversation with me and Jake Sims that happened last night. It's a very special day, special week, special time in the history of the fight against transnational organized crime. And I hope it is the first of many such indictments and sanctions. The good work we do here at Stolen to raise awareness and to educate about transnational organized crime can't be done without funding. And that's why I'm so grateful to our friends at Scamnetic and BioCatch. So cheers, Jake. It is a Friday night. It is Friday night of the week in which Chen Zhi got indicted. It is a big deal day for people who have been in the fight against transnational organized criminals for years on end. So, Jake, tell me about what your reaction was when you heard that he had been indicted.
I think this has been coming for a long time. I was very excited to hear, like, oh my goodness, that's a very big deal to sanction someone of this magnitude. I sort of assumed that the reason why it had taken so long to sanction this guy and this entity was because maybe there was actually a criminal investigation going on at the same time. And it really magnifies the impact of a sanction when you are actually indicting the person as well. You're saying not only are you cut off from access and we're going to freeze your assets, but actually, we actually want hands and cuffs at the end of this sort of game. And then to find out on top of that it was also being coordinated with the UK, which is something that, I've been sort of like stumping on for a long time, that sanctions are a good way to deter elite crime, highly impugn elite crime. But when you do them unilaterally, it only goes so far. And that in and of itself is amazing. I was like, okay, like, I think from what I know, that means a lot of properties are going to get seized in the UK, and indeed they were. And we took $15 billion of cryptocurrency. And I had to read it like 3 or 4 times. Like, no, it's not like we want 15 billion. We took it. Like, it's in the paragraph. It's like, is in the possession and full ownership of the U.S. government. And, plus now I think, I forget the exact number, but I think it's like 179 million.
In the real estate?
In the UK. And then you have, if you look through the list of sanctioned entities, we can speculate all day, but it's not inconceivable but that the total amount of frozen criminal assets are twice what we can actually see, or more even. Like there's a huge amount of money that we don't even see that's been potentially frozen here. But $15 billion becomes a historic moment, not just this is a step in the right direction. This is actually, we're in uncharted territory here.
It's an amazing amount of money, and then it makes me think that's a piece of this. He's not the only one in this business. There are plenty of others that are also ripe for being sanctioned and being indicted. But to see that much money, it's insanity. And at least from where I sit, it is a major validation of the work that we've been doing, and it shows that it is as bad as we've been saying. It is worse than we've been saying.
Yeah, that's the kicker. It's worse. Like, once I got back in my chair, stopped being blacked out from seeing this $15 billion money.
Right.
Number, you read through the indictment, and I've written extensively about Chen Zhi, maybe more than almost, not quite anybody, but almost anybody. I've researched this guy, for several years, and I have followed him. I think I understand what's out there and what is knowable in the public domain, and with some sources as well. But you get, I knew this guy has a lot of scam compounds. I know he's connected with the Cambodian government. I know he's overseeing operations and the real estate and the laundering and all of that. I didn't realize he was overseeing beatings and the movement of trafficking victims between compounds and the actual assessment of the relative profit margin of each. I thought he had more distance than that. He was actually, what is alleged is that he was even more deeply involved than I knew.
I was dumbfounded by that. As a prosecutor, when you are going after the big fish, it's going to be difficult to attribute the bad acts to them because they're usually so insulated from it. And so to see the evidence that the Department of Justice must have here is astounding. To know that he was personally involved in the violence, personally involved in the trafficking, personally involved in the movements of money, it's astounding. It is astounding.
It's astounding, but I think your prosecutorial instincts are right there that actually the real perpetrators, the big guys, the people that were behind him, they still do have a hedge of protection around them. And the most important takeaway from this, like from a celebratory standpoint, like $15 billion for people who are fighting organized crime, we are at, maybe, depending on how you look at the numbers, maybe 4+X times the biggest ever criminal asset seizure in history. Like this is the biggest by an enormous margin. So that's the celebratory side. The key message though here is this was not a rogue criminal actor. This is someone who was deeply embedded, honestly, in multiple compromised governments, but specifically the government that he was a sitting cabinet level senior government official in, and was a personal advisor to the prime minister. And we should get into this later because I want to really hone in on this, but he was a business partner to the deputy prime minister. And the deputy prime minister is now backing away from that.
It's a major crisis. They've been named as being part of this transnational crime organization. This indictment. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I think there is so much to this. There's so much in that indictment. There's so much in the sanctions. There's so much in that seizure of that money that there's just a lot to move through. Go ahead.
No, it's absolutely true. And even beyond, yes, there's a lot that implicates the Cambodian government. And I think if you take indictment of this guy that was in that position 1 week after the U.S. has declared this a state sponsor of human trafficking, the signs are there. They're not being said exactly explicitly by the U.S. or the U.K. government. They're calling him a tycoon, a Chinese businessman operating in Cambodia. But this is a senior government official that was acting with the full weight and protection of the government. And he was a key patron that is actually fueling the durability and sustainability of a very unpopular regime largely because they have been criminal in their activities and the way they've made money all along. But there's also a real sort of Damocles now hanging over the Cambodian government's head, because you look at co-conspirators 2 through 7. I'm not going to, but we can speculate on who those people are. And there's no good argument to say that at least a couple of those are uber senior members of the Cambodian government. Right. And so the line, and I think the Cambodian government is responding as wisely as they possibly could right now.
So let's back up, though. Yeah, I want to get to that, but
they're crazy. Right?
Right. I don't know how you talk your way out of this. So let's back up. Right, let's back up a little bit, because for someone who maybe just now seeing hey, some Cambodian tycoon's been indicted. What does that mean? What do you mean he was connected to the government? What does all that mean? Give us a little background to catch us up on the ruling elites of Cambodia and how this transnational organized crime syndicate has been able to operate in their midst.
So what's your aunt's name that we...
My Aunt Terry. We're telling my Aunt Terry.
Aunt Terry.
Yes,
so
tell my Aunt Terry.
Go back and watch Stolen episode
3 or 4. Is it 7? Yeah.
Whatever the first one where we talked and I sort of broke down the Cambodian political economy. I think that is actually the key thing that the world needs to understand now is how does this regime operate? So in the 2-minute version, and you can tell me if I need a more Aunt Terry this.
Nope. You give me the 2 minutes and I'll dial you down if I need to.
Okay. So the 2-minute version is Cambodia has been ruled for 40 years by effectively a dictator who had at the beginning of his regime very limited economic opportunities. There weren't a lot of industries in Cambodia. It was coming out of one of the worst civil wars of the 20th century. A quarter of the population killed or displaced. A lot of the like upper class and people like the professional class was just completely annihilated. Really, really sad, terrible situation. And what he found he was quite good at was being a very pragmatic, very coercive, very violent leader. And in order to do that well, in order to do it sustainably, if you're stealing lots of money, if you're enriching yourself and your cronies and your friends, you need to make sure that you are paying all the people with the guns, right? And so that is effectively what Cambodia has done really well that some of the other like most corrupt countries in the world haven't done really well. And that is the story behind why they have been so durable. Like this has been going on for 40 years. But the way that you pay, if you don't got a tech industry, you don't have a services industry, you have a very small garment industry, nascent, that's actually dependent on, Western consumers believing that you're doing fair labor practices, which they weren't. And so what it means is that they realized that very early on they had to specialize in these high margin, extractive, predatory, and outright criminal industries. And they started doing that by running drugs and running tobacco and stealing land from peasants and building things on it and cutting down the forests and selling the timber illegally. And it eventually metastasized into building casinos and welcoming in the sorts of criminals that you talk about every week, who realized that ultimately the most profitable of all of these extractive schemes is scamming wealthy people who don't have a chance of even uprising against you because the real victim of your predations at that point aren't even in Cambodia. And so that's basically like the situation that we're in. And the really, really malign like structure that Chen Zhi had worked his way to near the very top of.
I didn't realize he was so young. I didn't realize he's 38 years old.
38 isn't that young. Come on.
But he built an amazing amount of. If it wasn't so illicit, it's an amazing business structure.
It is, and it's almost like not believable that someone who came from a completely unknown background with, as we now know, a criminal record in his home country, and just randomly arrives at 30 years old and starts splashing millions and millions and millions of dollars and working his way up to the point where he's running an industry where the U.S. government eventually pulls $15 billion out. And he was, clearly a personal advisor to 2 prime ministers in that country and able to, keep his home country from doing anything against him. Like, we don't have there's no smoking gun here, but someone was paying this guy up front. Like, he came in with money and support and training to do exactly what he did. So.
For the short version is this is happening in a country that is amenable to accepting money to allow people to do things.
And he came in with money, and he ended with enormous influence. And the question is, like, what was that influence going towards? Why did it take so long for any government to crack down on what he was doing within Cambodia? But I think the most plausible theory for this is that on some level he was serving some purpose of a foreign government. And so it's just really hard to it's hard to say that with certainty, but certainly within this indictment you see that he was had an ongoing corrupt relationship with members of the MSS, MPS. These are security agencies within the Chinese Communist Party. And he was asserting untold influence over the Cambodian government, which is a key part of a key voting bloc in a region that China's trying to gain influence in. And so I'm not stating that my theory is that he was a developed Chinese asset, but it's certainly there's a lot of signals that look in that direction. And I think now that there's so much international attention on him, I think that story is going to get a lot of traction, and there's a lot of threads to pull on, to be frank.
And So let's talk about you personally and how you personally lived in Cambodia. You've studied this, you've researched this, you've had a lot to say about this. You don't feel comfortable returning to Cambodia. What do you think? You're named in the indictment. Now you're named as an expert. Your information
Co-conspirator number 3.
Yeah, number 3. So tell me about how your expertise really went into this indictment, this sanctioning.
I mean, I honestly don't know. I know that. I know that. I mean, if you back it up, the person who sort of broke this story of Chen Zhi and the untold influence that he has and the global tentacles of his crime, and we're focusing a lot on Cambodia because, I mean, they're the most principally culpable actor, but like, he had compromised senior government officials in lots of countries to be able to do something like this. The person who broke that story to like broader public awareness was a guy named Jack Davies, who was writing for Radio Free Asia, and he wrote this amazing 3-part expose that anyone who actually wants to legitimately understand how this thing came about, you can't understand the story of the Chen Zhi saga and action and the fallout that will ensue in the coming weeks and months and years without understanding like the very, very critical role that Jack played in putting this on everyone's radar. And I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but you can look on Prince's website and see, and you can look at, public domain sources around the world and see what Prince did coming after Jack to try to stop that information from getting out. And Jack was the first. I think his expose in some was the best, the most comprehensive, the biggest, outlay of new information until this indictment, which is obviously put out, basically everything with some coded language about who the, key conspiratorial officials were. But then there was some other reporting, and, starting with Jack, every time anyone started saying something about this organization, they would look at the levers that they had to try to silence and intimidate that person into stopping to talk about them, and they would deploy them at full force. And that wasn't just like Jack and Radio Free Asia. Like, it was like AFP and The Diplomat, but you sort of fast forward, I think about a year or so. The next major report that talked a lot about Chen Zhi, his corrupt connections and his criminal activities, was mine, that happened in May of this year. And then, secondly, the fact that people just didn't stop talking about it, and people who had a lot to lose, like people with friends and family, and some of them even actually still in Cambodia, like people like Nate and Lindsay and the people that they're working with, that shouldn't be named because they're actually at legitimate physical risk if they were, like the continued drumbeat on this. And also, like, I don't know if, I will actually, I'm curious, like, I don't know if you've ever had like a legal threat letter from Prince Group, but like, you've talked to about them knowing all of this was happening. And yeah, just the unwillingness of people who care about the issue to be silent, I think has I think it kept this on the radar long enough to where somebody in DOJ realized this is a big one, right? So yeah, I think ultimately that's, and yeah, like, of course, like, I do feel like the fact that they only cited one external source in the entire thing, and it happened to be my report, like, that, yeah, that's it feels like a great endorsement. I am just really thankful to be in this place where I get to, I feel like the people who are taking risks to make a report like that happen, like, which I took some, but like, I'm not to a real extent, like I feel like my place in this right now is, to basically keep doing that, to keep the drum beat up, to keep amplifying the voices that can't speak for themselves, and to keep talking about the people who are still inside and the people who are still losing their life savings and their lives and their livelihoods to this thing all over the world. And it's just an amazing place to be in, to try to like continue catalyzing that. I know we've talked about that a lot, and it's just
let's be honest. It is not a comfortable place to be the speaker about this. It is not a comfortable place to be people trying to get that information out. Tell me about what that climate has been like inside the country and for journalists.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a comfortable place for me, like, to be like a white dude who doesn't even live in Cambodia, like, kind of being the face of the biggest thing that's ever happened in Cambodia by some measures. The way I sort of deal with that is like, I mean, the people that I respect, the people that I am kind of like doing this for, that are on the inside, they've been supportive, and they've, continued to be like, those aren't like, like people that I knew and then sort of like went off and did my own thing, and now they're like, what are you doing? Like, we're still working closely together. And, because of that, it puts me in this weird position where, like, I want to amplify their voices, but I actually can't say who all these people are, because it would put them at immediate existential risk. And so that, like, for me, like, that's kind of the hard part, is like, I face probably, negligible risk ultimately in all of this, just because of, like, I have elite affiliations and an elite passport, and, I don't live in that region anymore for this exact purpose. But it does always, I always feel like that tension. And I also sort of feel this sense that, like, this is liminal. This can't exist for a long time and it be the right thing for me to be doing. Like, when we get to a place where leaders within Cambodia actually can safely speak up for themselves, those are the people that need to be on Stolen and CNN and all these other places, like, actually speaking about this, because they're going to know it better, and they have more at stake. And I just kind of see myself as like a person that's filling that gap for now.
One of the things that you're saying there is something that is obvious to me just in looking at what is still happening inside Cambodia. In no way is this game over. This is a big blow. But when I start thinking about where these compounds are still located, that they are still fully functional, that this is still happening. Although, actually, you know what? I saw some video today that looked like there were some escapes today. Have you seen that video?
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
I mean, it's chaos right now. Look, like, I mean, studying the Cambodian government, along with, like, giving me, like, a sense of sort of, like, rage about how they've chosen to rule their country for 40 years. There's an enormous amount of respect for the level of pragmatism that the CPP has used in maintaining this, like, ridiculously unpopular, very harmful, like, globally despised sort of order. And it's just like, it's not that many people who are doing it. You also have is two of the major banks in this country, Prince Bank and Way1 Wallet, are now, like, completely insolvent. Like, so millions of dollars of tens of thousands of Cambodian people's money, which is the only thing they've got left. They've trusted the government to run a functional financial system, which has been based on crime for a very, very long time. And now they can't get their money back. I just feel very, like, deeply for the Cambodian people, who have been completely screwed by this government. And it's not, and again, like, this is not like the government. It's the people at the very top of the government, the people at the mid levels, the people at the low levels. They are getting screwed over as well. Like, most of this money in an elite patronage system, which is like the sort of scholarly term for this, it basically just means the guy on top, Hun Sen and his family, get most of the money, and then they pay that money out to maintain loyalty to their closest friends, and then they pay out a little bit, just enough to keep people loyal below and below them. And the lower you get on that totem pole, the less you get. And so the vast majority of people do not benefit from this system. But the people then, and sorry, like, I'm sort of like ranting here with rage, but in most countries in the world, doing this, like, destroying your country's reputation by becoming like a true mafia state, we call it a scam state, like, whatever, like, then, like, making a significant proportion of those people not able to get their money because the way those banks were invested were criminal activities. And it also puts, like, massive financial, it's like in most countries in the world, that would lead to massive civil unrest and
That's what I'm wondering.
and
Will there be an
instability.
uprising?
Here's the problem. Those people at the top have all the guns. Right?
So there will not be an uprising.
And the international community, so to speak, is in two camps. One of them is fully focused on sovereignty, and whatever happens in your border stays in your borders, and we just play nice with each other, and you want to kill everyone, fine, like this sort of mentality. And the U.S. is gradually moving towards that mentality as well. And the other is just, using, like, just unwilling to use the type of language, the type of candor that's needed to call a spade a spade. And this has become one of the most harmful, both domestically and internationally, regimes in modern history. And the world is just waking up to that. But my concern now is, like, is the world going to wake up soon enough to save lots of Cambodians getting killed by their government if they happen to speak up for themselves? That is like the real potential injustice that's about to happen. And it might not. Like, it might not. Like, this, they might find a way to maneuver. They're very, very practical. They're very, very pragmatic. They may find a way to blame this on Thailand, blame it all on Erin and Jake, like blame it on U.S. imperialism, blame it on China, maybe. Like, I don't know, like, how they're gonna get themselves out of it. They are very good at get themselves out of corners, but this is a pretty serious corner that they're backed into. And when you back a regime like that into a corner, if you're not focused, if you're not keeping the pedal down, if you're not ready to back up these actions with actually supporting the outcome you want to see, people like this, they're going to result to violence. That's it.
It's a scary time. It's a
very
scary time. How do you think they got off the FATF gray list?
Corruption. It's a broken process. I mean, if you look at like how they actually got off, it was like all over Twitter. Like 6 months before, they like invited Pakistan, who had somehow maneuvered themselves off the gray list. They invited them there, and they were like advertising. It was like, Pakistan's going to come and teach us how to get off the gray list.
Oh, wow.
And so some consultant figured out how to check all of the boxes that don't actually, basically like paper reforms.
Right.
And I'm sure like on paper, and I'm not saying like FATF is corrupt, like in like the traditional sense. I more mean like
they maneuvered themselves off it. Yeah.
It's a gameable process. Like, it's a gameable process because it doesn't have any civil society input or involvement or mechanism whatsoever. And it's very, very political. And, the world was in a place where they're like, we got to kind of try to make nice with Cambodia so that they don't like go too far towards China. Like, that's what the people who are on this committee. And so, they basically got a free pass. Like, and it's sad because FATF, like, for people who aren't aware of like what FATF is, like, this is a watchdog organization that has an ability to tell banks, look, this country has strategic vulnerabilities in its money laundering protocols or its anti-terrorism protocols. And if you do business with them, you are at risk of being complicit in those things, and you're going to have a regulatory risk and blah, 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 blah. And so what it does is it makes the vetting process for international banks, it raises it, which raises the cost of lending, which ultimately like puts constraints on investment and stuff in the country, and actually has like a measurable impact on GDP, which isn't all good. But in a country like Cambodia, where all of the capital is controlled by a few hundred people, I mean, most of the impact is going to go where it should go.
It just seems like it is a country that is tailor-made for being on the gray list.
Yeah, like,
right.
Other than
no disagreement.
Other than maybe Myanmar or North Korea, like what else? Like, who else can you say is they truly maybe? And now that we have 15 billion in proof, plus however much he had in the like BVI or wherever else, there's a really good case to say that Cambodia is the top money laundering country in the entire world, maybe ever in human history. I'll die on that hill. And they're not even gray listed. Oh my gosh, like, it's so.
I know.
Only a half a beer of angst in this is
Exactly. To me, it was so interesting that anybody who watched that Al Jazeera documentary, and you were in that Al Jazeera documentary that came out, was that 2022?
Yeah, that's when the That's when the threats started coming.
Yes. I mean, that Al Jazeera documentary in 2022 laid it out in the type of documentary I don't know that I've ever seen in my life, which was there's bad stuff going on in Cambodia. This is your guy. Here he is linked to the ruling elites, and here's all the money he has. He's got this building and this building and this mansion.
Yep.
It was amazing. Are you surprised that it took 3 years for this to happen? The sanctions and the indictment to happen?
I mean, we got Leon Pat a year ago, so that was a good first step. I mean, with the $15 billion, it's kind of like, okay, that was worth waiting 3 years. Like, that's a lot of money.
And this takes a long time. And to get the kind of evidence that the DOJ has, that's crazy evidence. That's amazing.
Yeah, to pass like evidentiary threshold to take that kind of money, and also to pass and this is like another part of this problem, but to pass what must have been enormous pushback from the East Asia Pacific Bureau of the State Department and the Cambodia embassy, the U.S. embassy in Phnom Penh, like to push back the objections about how bad it would be to destabilize such a major player. Like, the evidentiary threshold must be so enormous, like, right? But also, you go back to that Al Jazeera documentary, it makes you can't be satisfied with a Chen Zhi sanction, indictment, and $15 billion seizure, because it's very clear. Anyone who watches that documentary, it's like, this is just one player. Yes, he was particularly bad, but we got to go after the next guy in line, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. He was linked to 10 scam compounds. There were 10 pretty bad ones, but there are hundreds.
But there's a lot of bad ones left.
Hundreds of scam compounds. There are a lot of
really bad ones left. I know. So let's go with they sanctioned Leon Pat last year. What do you think the effects have been on compounds, areas of the country that he controlled?
So a totally different situation, and so I don't think that's a direct corollary here.
Okay, tell me why not.
So Leon Pat is a Cambodian senator. He is, probably a top 10 most powerful person in the country. You're targeting at the same level of the political elite as you were with Chen Zhi here. But Leon Pat, and Leon Pat does have some transnational leakages. He had houses a couple of different countries. He certainly had business ties in Thailand, but he was mostly a Cambodian player. Like, he owns all the electricity, and he owns a lot of public service, public utilities, that sort of stuff. And so it was basically, when you have sanctions against an actor like that, and so there's three types of sanctions. There's the Leon Pat. There's the ones the ones between Leon Pat and sanction, and then Chen Zhi. The first type, where it's purely like a local elite actor, the main impact is the work that does to delegitimize him and the system that he is a part of. Because at the end of the day, most of his assets, it's up to the Cambodian government to do the right thing or do the wrong thing. And in this case, they did the wrong thing. They vanished all of his corporate listings within 3 weeks of him being sanctioned.
Right,
and now he took the signs off his buildings and just kept doing the same stuff.
Right. I was there after he was sanctioned, and I went by the Kokong Resort, and the signs are down, but Kokong Resort is still operating. Yep. Did he divest himself of that?
No, he didn't divest himself. There's no evidence that he divested himself. And it's not, so there's a difference within Cambodia's corporate records. You can shut a company, and then it shows the company existed from here to here. Here were the people involved, blah, 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 and now it doesn't exist anymore. That's normal. It's reasonable. It happens all the time. Businesses fail. They shut down. They get acquired. But to vanish a corporate record means up until 3 days after the U.S. government sanctioned him, he had 37 companies, or it's 30-something companies.
Right, it's crazy, right.
And then, on that day, it had never happened that he ever owned any companies ever in the country. It's like this 1984 nonsense. It would be funny if it was not so terrible. And even the non-sanctioned entities that he owned, they all just vanished. And so basically the kleptocracy subsumed him back into themselves and protected him.
So is there a benefit to sanctioning someone like him?
I think so, because it gives an opportunity if, and again, I'm like gonna, push like diplomatic. There's diplomatic responsibility. If you're going to go through the major interagency effort to sanction someone super powerful within a government, up front, if you're thinking with your brain half turned on, oh, that government, he's that powerful in that company, they're just going to protect him, which is what happened. And so, are we going to do this? The only reason we would do it is to show that this is a criminalized, illegitimate government in a system that will go and protect someone who is an evidenced criminal. But in order to do that well, right, so that makes sense if the embassy that is responsible for, upholding U.S. foreign policy and representing U.S. interests that are in that country, let's say, just basically translates the thing into the local language, or endorses it, or speaks positively about it, or explains to the local people, here's why we sanctioned one of the worst kleptocratic actors in your country. It's because
you're making me think that didn't happen.
None of that happened. Behind closed doors I've got sources saying like the embassy basically apologized for this.
Right. But would you agree that now this is one of the foremost countries that we should be paying attention to?
Obviously, yes. Yes. Like, they are the primary perpetrators of the largest form of financial crime that's ever impacted American citizens. They are a chief means by which our chief geopolitical adversary in the world and in the region is doing its machinations around the region. Like this is yes, they should be. We shouldn't have an outmoded foreign policy. So that's one reason. The second, the others don't really matter. The second is it has to do with like leadership in the embassy. So back in 2019, Congress bipartisanly endorsed an ambassador that had a very strong track record as a public diplomacy, dialogical, let's have conversations, let's make compromises sort of ambassador in a country that, in retrospect, we should have had an adversarial diplomat there, like what China calls the wolf warrior diplomats, like someone who's out there saying, stop being a mafia state, stop letting China have naval bases in your territory, like stop doing all this bad stuff around the region. And we didn't. And then he left in late 2022, and they haven't
replaced.
They have not been replaced, which means all of the career diplomats that are there, it doesn't mean there's no head, but they've all been like arbitrarily promoted above their pay grade. And I have nothing against any of the people there, but they are all, by definition, over their heads, and they are working with some of the most capable, adept killers in the entire region, and the evidence shows that what the result of that has been.
One of the things that really struck me when I first started to study Cambodia was the Ream Naval Base and then the airport at Dar Sakor. Can you talk to me about those?
Yeah, I mean they're serious. Like it's a big deal to U.S. National security strategy and military diplomatic strategy that China has put their second naval base globally, extraterritorial naval base globally in Cambodia, and an airport and a whole lot of other stuff that is more nuanced and the evidence is less clear on, but
these ones are obvious. It was we will make you a deep water base, and and then now they have warships parked there.
Yes.
We are going to be businessmen building out the Dar Sakor area, and then, we're actually not going to do that. What we are going to do is build a $350 million airport capable of handling military aircraft.
Yes.
And those two are 37 miles from each other. Where do you think Chen Zhi is?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even want to speculate. He could be dead. I mean, honestly, he, and I don't say that lightly. Like any person being dead is not. It's not funny. I'm not hoping that he's dead, but you just think about this. He had his balance sheet was so far on the assets side. He was the Cambodian government's top asset. He may or may not have been one of China's top assets in the region. He's got clearly his fingers in senior government officials all over the world. He's a liability to the nth degree to any senior government official he has ever had contact with at this point.
He knows a lot of stuff.
He knows a lot of stuff, and none of those people want him making deals with DOJ. So, I mean, I'm not saying I think that's the most probable outcome, because, like, it's also probable you got $15 billion in a crypto wallet that, you know, DOJ hacks. Like, you probably got a lot of other money that we didn't get. And money goes a long way. So, you know, he could be hiding somewhere. He could be hiding in Cambodia. You know, I actually don't put it past the Cambodian government extraditing him, because the cost of him being there, and he's like a blight on their reputation. Like, they could see that as, like, pragmatically as a way to get out of this. And good on them if they do, because, like, handing over, like, you know, extraditing a criminal of that magnitude is actually a really big deal. That would be an initial sign of, you know, like, very, very small halting sign of reform. He could be in jail in China. He could be, like, living in a penthouse in Dubai. Like, he could be in my backyard. Like, I don't know.
He could be anywhere. He could be anywhere. Yeah, no, that's fair. When you and I first started talking, and we were involved with the United States Institute of Peace project and the senior study group, there was numbers that came out of the UN ODC at that time that there was 120,000 people in forced criminality in Cambodia, and about the same in Myanmar. Do you think now, I don't know if you have I'm not asking you for a number. I can see you, like, scratching your head. That's not what I want.
You're saying, like, the number of forced laborers, like,
yes.
the 150 versus 120 in Myanmar thing?
Yeah. It felt back then in 2023 that Cambodia and Myanmar were pretty much equally matched in terms of the amount of scam facilities, scam work that was being done in those countries. Do you have any idea, as we sit here in late 2025, how Myanmar matches up to Cambodia?
Yeah, so I mean, Jason, you can have Jason on. He can refute what I'm saying here, because I mean, everything else probably Jason will. But I think, yes, I think there's good reason to say, like, up until, like, at earlier stages, because of Myanmar's just insanity and chaos, that the two rivaled each other. But Cambodia, in addition to being, like, corrupt and captured and all this stuff, it's really, really stable. And what we know, and the reason that most of this stuff, like, yes, it's spreading all over the world, but the reason that most of this is concentrated in Southeast Asia is because the people at the top of it, like the criminal masterminds, they are business people at an elite level, and they're looking for places where the investment is stable. And so take the forced labor numbers, which are enormous and catastrophic. Take that out of the equation for a second, because yes, I think ultimately the argument is, at any given point, it's anyone's guess whether Cambodia or Myanmar is slightly greater. And I will even concede, like, if there was ever a point in the history of the evolution of this where Myanmar may be actually outpacing growth from Cambodia, it's right now. It's right now.
Right.
Like, if there's ever been a point, like, it was the 2022 crackdowns, all the criminals knew, and you can look on the Telegram.
Don't call them a crackdown. Don't call them a crackdown.
These aren't crackdowns. They're performative, like PR stunts.
Right. Reductions in force.
This is real, and it really exposes a vulnerability in Cambodia's game for the first time ever. And it's not because the Cambodian government has done anything good. It's because their vulnerability, their brittleness has been exposed. And that's, okay, you've got this stable thing, you're pretending to be a real country, like people treat you like a real country, and now you've got billions and tens of billions of dollars of assets in all the countries that have a constituency interest in taking that money from you. So, like, that has just, like, this is the first instance of that happening. But, sorry, on top of that, on top of the forced labor numbers, there's no real case that a lot of the service industries, the criminally generated AI companies and stable coins and all this nonsense, that's not happening in Myanmar. That's happening in Cambodia. And those people aren't forced laborers. Those are well-paid criminal tech workers that are doing that stuff. And so, like an industry like this doesn't exist just on the back of, like, you know, a bunch of slaves held in a defunct casino. Like there's like a real, like, a Silicon Valley supporting this. Like, this is, you know, I know like the number that we're supposed to stick to is like 50 to 70 billion, but like this we found on Chen Zhi's phone 15 billion revelation is like, you know, and some other data points that I'm getting from talking to witnesses who have actually observed, you know, I look at, you know, my or like the UN's estimates of like revenue per worker, like we're way wrong. Like we're really, really wrong, maybe by an order of magnitude wrong on like how much this stuff is generating.
Yeah.
And yeah, like so, like you know, maybe hundreds of billions of dollars. Like that doesn't come from a bunch of slaves in a compound. Like there's like a real tech innovation that's happening alongside of this, and that's not happening in Myanmar. That's happening in, you know, in facilities and well-infrastructured, extremely stable Cambodia.
Now, we know that that Chinese organized crime has started to move into island nations like Palau. We know that it started to move into Sri Lanka. We know that there was a bust in Isle of Man. We know about Peru. If you just saw the documentary that Al Jazeera put out about Paraguay, where Jason Tower is in that, there's a real threat,
Yeah.
very real threat in South America of moving there. What do you think happens as a result of this? Do you think there's more international ex-Cambodian movement?
It depends on what happens from here. You know, the U.S. government shut down. They're like sitting on their heels right now. We just had the biggest seizure in human history. And they're literally shut down. Like all the people who could be doing good work to like keep pushing. Right now, and I don't know what the UK's. My guess is like the boldest thing the UK has done since like they, you know, fended off the Germans in 1945. So I don't see them like really taking another assertive action by themselves. That's where my real prejudice is against my former colonial oppressors. No, but
I'll say that they did sanction a lot of people last year, and we did not join in those sanctions.
They did.
We had an opportunity. Yeah.
No, the UK actually has done a lot in this space, but I don't see them acting alone in a magnificent way like this. And what's needed right now is because of all these
leadership. Yes.
What's needed is international leadership, but it's leadership that is willing to keep the pedal to the floor. Like we just did the biggest money laundering bust, you know, scam bust, criminal bust in history. I've got like a hopper loaded full of these people, and it's not.
Oh, I know you do. I know you've got it.
And it's not sitting with me anymore. Like all this stuff is in the public domain. Like there's tons of information out there, and we just need to like hammer home the point that it is not an acceptable way to run a country in the 21st century by trafficking people and scamming people from all over the world. That is not an acceptable way to maintain power. That's just like being a terrorist organization. It's just like being a genocidal, it's not the same, but it should be.
It's different and bad.
It should be unacceptable.
Yes.
It has reached the point that like we can say, okay, like in the digital age, like this is the type of thing that we just can't accept as an international community, or the whole system's going to fall apart. Right? So if we do that, Paraguay is not going to turn into a scam state. If we do that, Sri Lanka is not going to turn into a scam state. If we do that, the islands aren't going to turn to scam state. Neither is East Africa or West Africa. This is going to exist. It's going to be with us longer than the drug trade. We've been fighting the drug trade for 80 years, and it is way easier to fight than scams. And it is bigger than it was when we started fighting it. This is going to be with us forever. But we don't have to have entire states that depend on this industry for their perpetration of their existence, right? Like their perpetuation of their existence. This should not be a way that states see, I could retain power even though I'm unpopular and criminal and hated by all my people. Like I could retain power just by scamming Americans. Like we need to keep the pedal down, or that is going to become a dominant mode of governance in the 21st century.
It's funny because I literally just used that turn of phrase on my LinkedIn. If we have to keep our collective foot on the gas here, that this is step one. This is not a one and done. This is we see you, Chen Zhi, and we continue. There are plenty of others that we see that we are going to continue this on.
And to be fair, to like our broader like strategic look on this, yes, like deterring scam states, I mean, it's my this is my thing. Deterring scam states should be priority number one.
Of course it should.
As we're doing that, we also need to start setting up offense and defense against non-state protected actors, because that's going to be, if we do the first thing. If we don't do the first thing, then it's just every corrupt criminalized state is just going to figure out they can stay in power by generating tens of billions of dollars by scamming Americans, right? Until we're all broke. If we do that, this is going to become a non-state actor-driven phenomenon, right? Like we're going to, and so we need to figure out ways to look at what Australia has done. Australia has been very weak on protecting the world from scam states. They are the chief complicit Western actor at this point. Like Hun To and Chen Zhi and all these people, like all of their safe properties, they're in Australia. So they're bad on that front, but they've done a very good job of protecting their own people from scams with like offensive and defensive counter cybercrime activities and centralized governing bodies and strategic ways of looking at this. We need to do that as well, and I think that's like just right there under we need to stop the existential threat that's happening right now as entire states are being subsumed by this. We also need to make sure that we have a comprehensive long-term strategy because, like I said, this is going to be around for 100 years or more.
So this is your Friday night celebrating the fact that finally a Cambodian tycoon has been indicted, and that a massive amount of wealth is being seized and is already in the hands of the U.S. government. What does your Monday look like? So Jake Sims, what happens next? What is your next?
I mean, I think I need to do whatever I can to convince the world to keep their foot on the pedal. Yes, let's celebrate. This is the biggest deal financially by financial metrics to ever happen in the fight against organized crime in human history. Let's celebrate that. That's great.
Right.
But if we want to fight this sustainably, we actually now have a playbook for how you go after elite system and state protected criminal actors. And if we shy away from that, or if we refuse to reopen the government so that we cannot shy away from it, or if we just miss this opportunity or let this government off the hook, other governments around the world are going to say, not we can't be a scam state, but how do we be a little smarter than Chen Zhi? Yeah. But if we say look, we know this is a scam state, we're just not going to allow that to happen anymore. And all of these people who have done these crimes against Americans and people around the world for 5 years, you're all going down. If that's the message, we put a serious dent in this form of organized crime. If we don't, and this just becomes about Chen Zhi, this great, the anomaly of Southeast Asia, genius of his own kind, rogue criminal actor. If it becomes that nonsense, then people are still going to want to have our advice because we, talked about him before he was famous. But what are we doing here? We've missed the forest for the trees. If we think this is the end all be all of potential law enforcement action.
Yeah, I think we've got a blueprint. We've shown that it can be done. So more of the same.
More of the same.